Hi friends, my name is Jemmy and welcome. Today I'll be talking about the Bombshell. I have been part of Book of the Month for the past couple of months. So I started reading about 2 years ago, and ever since then I have been expanding my books and what genres I read. But I've been really trying to get through each book that I buy. And so this is the first month that I've read a book of the month within that month, and this one is The Bombshell. And I actually was really stuck between The Bombshell and Silver Elite. As someone who has read mostly fantasy, I usually gear towards a book like Silver Elite, but I've been really, again, trying to expand the genres that I read, getting back into literary fiction, historical fiction. So it's been really fun for me because these are the books that I read a lot when I was in high school, alongside fantasy and romantasy. So one of the reasons that I picked up this book was because I was really interested in the story. It was very strange. It was, first the bombshell. She has been kidnapped, then becomes a part of the organization that kidnaps her. And I just thought that was really strange and interesting. Also, the author is Salvadoran American and I'm Salvi, so I was really happy about that. It's not very common that you see a lot of Central American writers, specifically Salvi writers, so for me that was super important. The way it read was almost like she was a Leo, and not to get ahead of myself, but and I can say this because I'm a Leo, but she had a very fiery kind of energy, really to the extreme, just super overconfident, kind of arrogant. At this point, I've read only half of it. I'm having really my first thoughts, and I'll read the other half later today. So just to summarize, this is based in Corsica, 1993. Corsica, from what I understand in this book, is a territory of France. What first came to mind for me was thinking of Puerto Rico to the US. The way the author describes Severine, which is the main female character in this story, is that she is a daughter of the prefect of Corsica. She's grown up in France, she's grown up in Paris, she's grown up with the elite, she's gone to the best schools, she's gone to the best parties, she has a very lavish lifestyle. Her mom is American, and so she has had that experience in both the American side and the French side, and does what she really wants, which is become an actress and just, just continue that lavish lifestyle. And really that's all of her ambition. The author really describes her as someone who lacks depth, vapid, comes off very shallow. So she knows this about herself. She knows that she does lack that depth. She's not really thinking about anything else other than her ambition, but she doesn't care. She knows it. She's happy. She's living her life. She's willing to do what it takes to get out. She wants to move to Los Angeles. So that's kind of where she's at right now. And she's 17 years old. She has this idea of her dad and her mom being kind of in the right. Basically, they're a socially and politically moral family. I don't really know how she got there. This is kind of brought into the beginning of the book when she meets a local Corsican boy. She sort of seduces him. She has this thing about taking virginity. She doesn't even like to, be intimate. She uses the experience of intimacy by getting some sort of validation, getting the attention that she wants, and being very emotionally detached. So when she decides to be with this local Corsican boy, it's because he's really obsessed with her. He really looks up to her. And it's almost like she wants to give him a little gift, wants to take that attention for herself. Within that conversation that she has with this boy, she kind of brings up oh, do you know my mom and dad? Do you know what they do? And the boy's yeah, I've heard, a thing here or there from some radicals, but I don't really pay attention to it. She goes, oh, wait, I hope you don't. I hope you're not listening to these crazy people. She's basically saying my dad is trying to do the best for Corsica. He is a really great politician. He's working to better this island. So she really believes it. She really does believe that her dad is trying to make Corsica better, that her dad's really smart, really kind and compassionate. He's really thinking about all these things, and that he runs on a more socialist political agenda. Her political ideas are very obvious from the beginning. She makes that clear through that encounter. Everything changes when she gets kidnapped. The way she gets kidnapped, the author really details that. There's someone tailing her, she gets shoved in a car, and she throws up, it's gross, and they take her out, they bring her to a really remote place. Like, there is nothing there. They made sure that she cannot be found. They shove her in a closet. At first, she's very much thinking, how do I get out of this? What do I need to do? Slowly, she kind of gives up, or the depression kind of sinks in, the reality sinks in. First, she's like, I'm only going to be here for a couple of days, like a day or two. My dad's going to pay whatever you want, that they'll have me out of here in no time. People that kidnap her are like, okay, sure. They don't really care. They don't really care about her. They do make an effort to not hurt her. It's kind of, they kidnap her, right? So they do make an effort to not be super brutal with her. One of the boys, his name is T2, he mentions this from the very beginning, like, we're not, gonna do anything to you. They're not gonna cross a boundary for her. That kind of calms her a little bit. She's feisty. She's like, I need to get out of here. For her, it was very interesting to see the way that she thought about her kidnapping. She never thought anything bad would happen to her. She's like, this is not my destiny. This is not supposed to happen to me. This is gonna be done in like a day or two. No, that does not happen. She ends up forming a relationship with these 3 men who kidnap her. Their names are Bruno, T2, and Petro. I think one of the interesting parts of this first half of the book is seeing how someone who is being kidnapped, who has been kidnapped, who's lived a very, very privileged life, you get to see kind of like what she's been through. She's used to kind of manipulating and using her charm to get what she wants, and realizing, I cannot do this. Reality just hit her so different that she just didn't know. She really had to change up her strategy. She really had to get her mind thinking, which is something that, from what I understand at the beginning, she's not accustomed to that. She just kind of floats by in life. At first, you're not considering that she's going to like these people, like they kidnapped her. She does justify it in the sense that they didn't want to hurt her, or they're like a little gentle with her, get her to think, okay, they're not that bad. And she spends more time with them. She talks to them more. She starts gardening with T2. She starts talking to Bruno. He gives her these books, and they're highlighting the way in which oppressed countries can navigate some sort of strategy or organization, a group. So she's reading all of this material, and they're talking about it like every night. Like, they're both really just engaging in these intellectual conversation, these debates, and it's really stimulating for her, and it's stimulating for him because he probably has not had to have these conversations with someone who is the oppressor, which it makes it an interesting concept of these people that you are trying to fight against. You've kidnapped them, and now you have an opportunity to have a conversation about moral dilemmas, about political stances, what's right, what's wrong. And this seems to really, I think, out of all of the relationships, this is what changes her. Because she does garden with T2, and she finds a little compassion in herself, and realizing that she's judged a lot of local Corsican people since she's been there. But how something like the act of farming and growing food can be so meaningful, purposeful, and it should not be looked down upon, basically. With Bruno, I think the intellectual conversations and her feeling really smart, again, just everything kind of revolves around her feeling really good about herself and validated. And I thought that was so interesting, because I imagine if I'm being kidnapped, or a lot of people can imagine if they're in that situation, you're not thinking about like, how am I coming off, and do you like me? But like, there's just this part of her that really needs to feel that approval. It's such a strong character trait for her, and in this book, I highlighted multiple times where she mentioned something that's like, oh, you really care about what they think of you, even though you don't think much of them. So these books start to change your perspective. She's like, oh my God, I am part of the oppressed. Maybe my dad isn't a good person. Maybe he is part of the problem and he needs to know. I don't want to be a part of this. And eventually, over time, they gain each other's trust. She does try to leave and come back. She's like, I want to join. I want to be part of this movement. She feels really strongly about this. And as a reader, you're constantly wondering, is she doing this because she truly has changed? Like, there are changes in her thoughts, but you're thinking, has she truly changed as a person? Or does she get some validation from this, from being someone who does this? Or is the relationship she's having with Bruno, which is a little Stockholmy, because it seems like she likes him, is this because she wants to be closer to Bruno and she wants to have a relationship with him, which she does mention in the book that she's like jealous of who she thinks is his girlfriend. So now she's in this group, she's completely in, she's ready to bomb shit. She's just full dive. And she's part of this group called Sofu di Libertà. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but my best guess. She eventually gets a phone call with her parents and she's like, Mom, Dad, they're worried. They're literally, their daughter's kidnapped. They've given already $5 million to get her out of this. It's a ransom. She's like, Mom, Dad, I'm part of this group. I want to make a change. You told me what's right or wrong. I'm in this. Like, in the beginning, she had to make videos saying, please get me out of this. Just pay the money. I want to go home. She's scared. She's probably like covered in dirt, really gross. And then next thing you know, it's a month later and she's like, I'm part of this group. I want to do what's right. And her parents are like, are they drugging you? Like, are you okay? Like, they don't believe it. This does not sound like Severine. This is very unlike her. And they're thinking she's being manipulated. She's like, no, I'm not being manipulated, blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, girl, you can get arrested. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, this, you're going to jail. I thought that part was so crazy. Like, I just can't imagine your parents have been trying to get you out. The whole situation is so wild, and I'm thinking this book is so interesting. Like, it could definitely be a movie. So she finally gets her first kind of job. She has been making this like all about herself. You should make it part of your movement. I can take pictures. I can do communications, pamphlets, whatever you want. I'll be the face of it. This will get you more coverage. And this whole time, again, it gets the reader to think, is she doing this for the cause, or is this a way for her to kind of get what she wants, the fame, the attention, while still doing something that's right? So I think that's one of the most like interesting parts right now, and as I'm halfway through, and I'm curious to see how it ends and where it goes, and basically if she actually has changed, or if this is just a part of her getting like attention and validation. But there's just like a lot of weirdness between her. She starts developing relationships with all three of the men, but like T2 has a crush on her. Like, he is just like yearning for her. And Bruno is cautious. He's cautious, but he's also very intrigued. And so he definitely wants to, it's kind of clear that he kind of likes her too, but we don't know to what extent because he's not being very forthcoming about that. Anyways, I'll keep it here and I will finish the rest of the other half and kind of see where that goes. The first part of this is just like, wow, this is crazy. This is a crazy story. And I'm curious to see how she does in this movement and if she decides to stay, or if she's like, no, I got my little 15 minutes of fame, so I'm done. I'm going back home. I'm going to go be an actress and live my lavish lifestyle. Hi, friends. I'm back. Day. New nails. Got a matcha. I'm glad that I split this book up into the first half and the second half, because the second half was very different than the first half, or the second half, I think so much changes with the main character. I actually have it split it up between non-spoilers in a spoiler section, so I will let you know in advance and warn you when we're getting into the spoiler territory. So in the second half, she's fully involved in Sofu de Libertad. She is in fact so involved that is sacrificing her lifestyle, her relationship with her parents, just in general. She's ready to give it her all. And the idea that I had from the beginning, which was why, she came from a very privileged family. She seemed to have the life that she really wanted. This was in the beginning of the book when we're in her thoughts that she had a plan for herself that she felt she was manifesting, and there was no other way. There was no other trajectory. We see that she does kind of change her mind a bit through reading the books that Bruno provided, where they had their back and forth intellectual conversations, where they seemingly start to really like each other. It starts to become really obvious that it's possible she's doing this all for Bruno. She is becoming very obsessed or infatuated with him. I think that is still always explored throughout the entirety of the book, but you really get that kind of like an answer towards the end of the book. I mean, the fun part about this book is that it can be interpreted in many different ways. There's a lot you can get out of it. There's so much complexity and layers to what is happening, the psychology of what's happening, the politics. And that's another thing I'll mention, is that this book is very heavily political. I think if it's something you're not interested in at all, then maybe you might not like it. The next couple of chapters are very chaotic. She almost starts to revel in the idea of violence. This is something that both her and Bruno have in common. They are kind of drawn to each other. They definitely feel like violence is necessary, and they almost seem happy to do it. They get something out of it that makes them also kind of attracted to each other. A part of her has always liked the idea of violence. It's an adventure, but then you're also exploring how much of that is also because she wants to prove herself to Bruno and the group. Again, those parts of the psychology between her kidnappers and herself are always being questioned in the book. How much of this is her doing? How much of this is part of the kidnapping, a combination, or is this bringing out the part of her that is real? I think there's never really a clear answer. I mean, she is a victim. She does get kidnapped. She's willing to risk it all for the group and to be taken seriously within the group and also with the partners that she works with. She's willing to risk it all, not just within the group, but also with the other organizations that they work with that kind of don't take her seriously. Her head, the way she thinks about things is wild. I'm kind of just following along. I'm just trying to keep up with this person and the way that she thinks about things. It truly amazes me. But all you have is her idea or her feelings about what's happening. So because she starts developing these feelings for Bruno, and she's also flirted a lot with T2, that the group dynamics really change. And I think this is where it starts to get dangerous and where the group Sofu de Libertad just starts to crumble. It starts to unravel. I think that's the funny part. They kidnapped her to level up their group, to be taken seriously. But I think the kidnapping of Severine is what undoes. It's the undoing of this group. Because she becomes the face of this organization, she definitely feels much more entitled or emboldened to make decisions for the group. And so you see the shift of her being kidnapped and having zero power to somehow finding a way to have the most power. Sure, they get mad at her sometimes, or they reprimand her, they call her out, but she does what she wants at whatever consequence. She does not care. She thinks she is right. This is the interesting part about it, because you're like, this person was kidnapped. This is bad, but also now she's the head bitch in charge. How did that happen? How did we get here? I mean, we see it, we hear her thoughts and how it happened, but it's kind of crazy. And I think this is the part where you start to feel some of her more unlikable traits come out. She's constantly talking about how she knows what's best. And I mean, to me, I'm also like, how do you know? How do you know that you're the best? Like, you're so new to this. Like, you didn't know anything about this. Like, you read a couple books and now you're like, nope, I am the voice of this organization and the people of Corsica. That is Delulu. That is top tier Delulu. She is like a force to be reckoned with. I don't think anything would get her down. Nothing could break her, probably. You do get a sense of empathy for the people living there, the locals, and what they're trying to do. You know, they're not being respected. They're being marginalized. They're being oppressed. Every mistake that this group does and all the bad decisions that they make eventually just impact the people, the local people of Corsica. They're the ones who have to live with the repercussions of the things that they plan to do. I'll just add that at this point, the decisions that she's making is that she wants to bomb every single day. She wants to make a huge statement and go to tourist areas, drop a bomb in random places, and hopefully no one gets hurt, right? Once she becomes the leader of this group, that's when a set of events start to unravel. And it almost becomes uncontrollable what starts to happen next, like the set of events that happen next. And there's even a line in the book where the moment that they kidnap Severine, something Petru suggested is that the moment they kidnapped Severine was when the inevitable would happen, or when all these events that are happening were just, there was nothing that could stop it. Just the sheer force of this person is something that they can't control. They kind of set Petru up to be this sort of witchy, intuitive person who is wise. I mean, I don't know to what extent he's wise. There's a lot of things that he's done that maybe aren't like the best decisions. He's set up as like this person who can kind of foresee events or has lived long enough and has seen enough where he can tell what's going to happen based on the decisions that they're making. But he still sticks around. The feeling that I got was that they were all he has. So he's just making the best with what he's got. So warning, we're going to get into the spoiler territory. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, just skip to the summary. The spoilers are starting now. So this is obvious throughout the book, but she is in love with Bruno. Like, she is truly head over heels, willing to do anything for him. And maybe you can get a different idea or a different answer from this, but what I got was that she was actually really in love with him. And she does admit that she's doing this for him. So I thought that level of self-awareness was so interesting because she's like, yeah, I'm doing this for him. Cares about the other men to some extent, but it's like she's in a fever dream. Bruno is her North Star. So she hears that Jonart, which I think is a governor, took away her dad's title as prefect, and this enrages Severine. She's just like, this has become personal. And it's in the book in little bits. She never states why she doesn't like him, but it's suggested that there's something has happened that was really bad, or he did something that made her very ashamed to talk about why she doesn't like him. Find out, and she does tell everyone in the group that he essayed her. She's really ashamed about it, and not entirely for the reasons you might think, but still it was a painful and embarrassing experience for her, and she never wanted to tell anyone. So at this point she's like, I'm gonna unalive him. That's it. I'm unaliving this man. And everyone's like, oh my God, like what? Okay, like this is Farr, right? The group has mentioned that they've had talks about offing other people, but they never went through with it because it just felt like they just couldn't cross that line. But for her, she's like, no, I can do this. So this obviously starts a chain of events. This is dangerous. This is big. They come up with this plan. They've been following him for a long time, so they know all his whereabouts, where he is. So they come up with a plan. They go to a different part of the island, and she confronts him. She's getting ready to unalive him. Bruno comes in last minute, very unexpectedly, and he's just not in his right mind. I think he thinks that she is hurt or something happened to her, so it kind of messes up the situation. They end up going outside in the hallway in public where other people can see them. She runs after Jonart, so she shoots him multiple times. So she follows him out. She does eventually unalive him in front of all of these people. So she gets away. She sees T2, And Tito's like, Bruno's hurt. We're going to get away. I'm going to take my motorcycle. You jump on the other motorcycle with Petru and we'll both take different paths and we'll get away. So she does. She gets away. She's like really worried about him the whole time, but they get away. They get back to the Bergerie, which is the area that they've kept her this entire time, the very remote location that she was kidnapped, and where they've been planning all of their organizations, missions, and ideas. All the things that they do is planned in this area. They get there, they're safe, they turn on the TV, and there is a chase, a police chase. It's being televised. There's a helicopter following T2 and Bruno, and it looks wild. It looks very scary. T2 is a pro on a motorcycle, he's moving left, right, he's drifting through the mountains. And eventually they announce one of the two men have died and the other is injured. And she's freaking out. She's like, who died? So T2 dies and Bruno is very badly injured. He gets hellvac'd to prison. So he gets healed, I guess, first, and then he goes to prison. She falls apart. And she's like, this is my fault. Petru comforts her and is like, well, we're all we have. Like, we just have to keep going with the cause. She does say something where I was like, I knew it. She's like, I don't care about Corsica. Like, I don't care about the cause. You're just like, I fucking knew it, you know? Like, I knew it. She eventually is like, I didn't mean it. And he kind of understands she's grieving. And, they try to rest. So police or something like a SWAT team shows up. They try to make a run for it. She grabs whatever she can. She definitely wants to grab the money and other supplies, and they make a run. They are trailing right behind them. Petru realizes that they both can't make it out. So he sacrifices himself for her to be able to go and run away. She gets to the other side of the road where there's civilization, and she calls up her parents. And of course, they already have a plan for her. They have a lot of money, so they set up all of these different connections to get her out of where she is through different countries to eventually get into the US. So she's able to get away free. So at this point, T2's dead, Bruno's in prison injured, Petru is dead, he sacrificed his life, and she gets away. The story then jumps 20 years into the future where her new name is Ramona, and she has a kid. Surprise, surprise, it's Bruno's. Are we surprised? No. But it's Bruno's. And you know what? She kind of makes it. She becomes a Hollywood studio exec. She doesn't become an actress, but the thing closest to it, she has a lot of money. She never married, and she raised this child on her own as a single mother. She names her child Petra, which I thought was really sweet. After Petra finds out about her mother's past through the books that Severine and Bruno would exchange, where they would write in the margins to each other. She feels like she ends up knowing a lot more about her mom. They have this whole confession. Now they decide we should go to Corsica. Ramona, aka Severine, then suggests we should go to Corsica. And they go together to meet up with Bruno. They find him. He's out of prison. For me, this is a really sweet moment, and I feel like it's nice to get some sort of closure on this, to have them all reunited. We know that Bruno wants a family, and that was really important to him, so I thought that was really sweet. So they get along. Petra and Bruno are actually very similar, so everything goes really well with their conversation. And it's obvious that Ramona, aka Severine, and Bruno have been thinking about each other the entire time, the whole 20 years. We don't get a definitive closure on them. It's very open-ended. It's really up for interpretation. She does mention they're not meant to be together, or like they're not good for each other long term, and he has to prioritize his relationship with his daughter. But I really do think that obviously can't stay away from each other. So I don't know. It seems like somehow, some way, they might find a way to work it out. This is probably the romantic in me, but I'm always wanting people who, even if they're like not good people, their characters I'm not really rooting for individually, I still want them to find some form of happiness or closure in their life. But that's how it ends. That is how it ends. So my overall thoughts is I really enjoyed reading this book. This was really fun for me. I love very strong female main characters that have a personality that's a little unlikable, but you get to understand them. I'm always drawn to these characters. It kind of reminds me of the reasons why I like Selena from Third of Class, which is I think a popular one that most people will recognize. But For a debut novel, this is amazing. I thought it was really incredible. It's something I would definitely recommend to other friends. For me, I rated this a 4.5. There were parts of it that were a little slower or took some time to get through, but overall, it was very fun, very adventurous, very cheeky. I definitely laughed. This book really left you feeling curious about your own beliefs, your own thoughts. And there's something really nice about a book that can do that. I think sometimes books can feel very predictable, or we can impose what we think is right or wrong. So for a book to make you think about your own beliefs and your own ideas is something that I really like. I really enjoy having a book that makes me think outside of the box and that leaves a sort of mark on me. There was a lot of complexity to Severine and also the other characters. I really think that if it wasn't for all the other stuff that was happening at Book of the Month for the month of May, that this would have been a top favorite. I truly believe that. If you happen to have Book of the Month, I would consider using a credit or adding it to your box. If you don't have Book of the Month, by the time this video is out, this book should be published. I have a backlog of books that I have to get through, and I think I'll do a review on those too. But that was all I had to say. It was really fun hanging out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!